If you own this rifle, the company that built it wants you to stop pulling the trigger. Today, they'll pay you $2,200 to hand it back, and they put the word death in writing to make sure you do. Every single one they ever made, recalled at once. This is what they're not telling you. Let me start with a story, and I'll be honest about it up front. Picture a man at a shooting range. Careful. The kind of guy who reads the manual twice, who measures his powder charge on a scale instead of eyeballing it, who does everything by the book. He seats his bullet. He closes the bolt. He squeezes the trigger, and the rifle explodes in his hands. Not a misfire, not a jam. The barrel comes apart, metal tears open in front of his face, shrapnel goes down the firing line, and a piece of it hits a total stranger standing at another bench several feet away. 2 people hurt, 1 trigger pull. A rifle that, on paper, was loaded exactly the way it was supposed to be. That account comes from a hunting forum. It's one owner describing what he says happened to his friend. I cannot verify it, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I can. But I'm telling it to you because of what happened next, and what happened next is not a rumor. It is not a forum post. It is a document, published by the company itself, that you can go read right now, in their own words, on their own website. On June 30th, 2026, the company that built that rifle recalled every single one it ever made. Everyone. Not a batch, not one bad production year, not a specific serial number range that slipped through quality control on a Friday afternoon. Every Paramount muzzleloader that has ever left the factory, going all the way back to the day the model first launched, hit with what the company itself calls an immediate stop-use order. And if you own one, they are offering to pay you up to $2,200 to send it back to them. Now sit with that number for a second, because that number is the whole story. Companies do not offer to buy back an entire product line, every unit, every year it was ever made, for up to $2,200 a piece, because a handful of customers didn't read the instructions. That is not a customer service gesture. That is not goodwill. That is a company trying to get a product out of people's hands as fast as it physically can, and paying a fortune to do it. And I am going to show you exactly what they said, word for word, and then I'm going to show you the one word they were very, very careful to never ever use. Because the gap between what this company did and what this company was willing to admit is where this entire story lives. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you're going to understand 3 things. First, what actually got recalled, and whether you, or someone you hunt with, is carrying one into the woods this fall. Second, what the company is blaming for all of this, and what the people who got hurt say is really going on, and I'm going to keep those 2 things in separate boxes so you can decide for yourself. And third, the part that should genuinely disturb you, no matter what you hunt with, or whether you've ever touched a muzzleloader in your life. The reason nobody from the government is investigating any of this, and why, legally, nobody can. Let's start with what's real, because there is plenty of it, and none of it requires me to guess. The rifle is the CVA Paramount. CVA stands for Connecticut Valley Arms. It's a muzzleloader, which means it's the kind of gun you load from the front, down the barrel, the type a lot of states let you hunt with in special primitive weapons seasons that open before the regular rifle crowd floods the woods. But do not picture some cheap primitive relic here. The Paramount was CVA's flagship, their premium, long-range, bolt-action muzzleloader. The one they engineered to reach out and kill an elk at distances muzzleloaders were frankly never supposed to reach. It launched back in 2019 at over $1,000, and the higher-end Pro versions climbed up toward $2,000. People bought these because they were sold as the best, the serious rifle. The one you buy when you've decided to stop messing around and take muzzleloader hunting seriously. And here's the first fact that matters to you directly, before anything else. The recall covers 4 versions: the Paramount HTR, the Paramount Pro, and the Paramount Pro V2. All production years, every one of them. So if you own any Paramount, of any kind, from any year, it is in this recall. Let me say that as plainly as I can because it matters. There is no safe version. There is no lucky year they quietly fixed it. There is no serial range that's in the clear. If it says Paramount on the side, the company that built it is telling you to stop using it today. I'm going to read you the company's own words now, because I don't want you walking away with my characterization of this. I want you to have theirs. This is from CVA's official recall notice, published on their own website, bpioutdoors.com. Quote, an unsafe condition may occur if a Paramount rifle is improperly loaded, including but not limited to double loading, use of incorrect or incompatible powder, improper loading, cleaning or storage procedures, presence of obstruction. These conditions may create an increased risk of failure, serious injury, or death to the user or bystanders during the initial or subsequent firings. End quote. Failure, serious injury, or death to the user or to bystanders. That is not my language. That is theirs. That is the company that designed and sold this rifle on their own official website, using the word death in writing, and specifically warning you that it isn't only the shooter at risk, it's whoever happens to be standing near him, the bystander, the buddy at the next bench, your son standing behind you, watching you sight it in. Now here is where you have to pay close attention, because this right here is the move. Read that notice again and look hard at what they are blaming. Every single cause they list is something you did. Double loading, that's you. Incorrect or incompatible powder, that's you. Improper cleaning or storage, that's you. An obstruction in the barrel, that's you again. Every reason on their list points the finger straight back at the person holding the rifle. In the company's telling, the Paramount is a perfectly good gun that only turns dangerous at the exact moment the hunter screws something up. And there is a word you will not find anywhere in that notice. Not once. Defect. They never say the rifle is defective. They never say the barrel was too weak, or the steel was wrong, or the design was flawed, or the manufacturing was bad, or the tolerances were off. They describe an unsafe condition that occurs, in their words, when you load it improperly. Read it 100 times, and you will never find them admitting there is a single thing wrong with the rifle itself. They are recalling every rifle they ever built. They are offering to pay you up to $2,200 to hand it back. They are warning you in writing that it could kill you or somebody standing next to you. And they are doing all of that while never once conceding that the gun is the problem. You do not have to be a lawyer to understand why a company would thread that needle. When a company admits a defect, it hands every injured customer a lawsuit, gift-wrapped. When a company blames user error instead, it protects itself in court, even while it's quietly paying to pull every unit off the shelf. So what you end up with is this strange, almost schizophrenic document that does two completely opposite things at the very same time. Its actions are screaming that something is dangerously, urgently wrong. Its words are calmly insisting that you, the customer, are the problem. Both of those things, living in the same notice, at the same time. Now, let's talk about what the failure actually is, mechanically, because this is where it gets specific, and specifics are what separate the truth from the noise. The Paramount was built around a barrel made by Bergara. If you know rifles, you know that name, because Bergara has a genuinely strong reputation for precision barrels. And here's a detail most people don't realize. Bergara and CVA are owned by the same company. A Spanish parent company called Decar. The barrels are made in Bergara, Spain, and finished into CVA rifles. So this wasn't some no-name tube from a factory nobody's heard of. It came from the same house as barrels that hunters trust and pay a premium for. That's exactly why the failures caught people off guard. The Paramount also used a special ignition system, marketed as VeriFlame, that let it fire the kind of heavy powder charges you need to push a bullet to long range. Big charges mean big pressure. And that's the tension at the heart of any long-range muzzleloader. You are deliberately loading more power into a front-loaded gun than muzzleloaders were ever traditionally designed to handle, chasing more speed and more distance. Here is a fact that tells you a lot. When CVA later replaced the Paramount with its newer rifle, the Endura, they built that new one with a tungsten-lined breech plug, specifically, in their own description, to handle the additional pressures and higher burn rates. Read that carefully. The replacement got a beefed-up, reinforced breech built for higher pressure. Draw your own conclusion about what that says regarding the pressure the old one was living with. So what actually failed? Here's the honest split, and I'm going to keep it clean. CVA says, improper loading. On the other side, owners and lawyers allege something very different, and I want you to hear that word, allege, because that is precisely what it is. They allege the barrels were never built strong enough, or never tested well enough to survive the loads this rifle was marketed to fire. On the forums, experienced owners, trade reports of quality control problems, bores that measured inconsistently, parts that didn't fit right. I'm labeling all of that for exactly what it is, anecdote and allegation, not a proven engineering finding. Nobody has handed me an independent lab report, and I'm not going to invent one for you. But the two camps could not be further apart. One side says you loaded it wrong. The other says it was doomed the day it left the factory. Let me lay the two sides out flat, so you can hold them both. On one side, you have CVA, whose position is loaded correctly. This rifle is safe, and the danger only ever comes from user error. That is their verified, official, in-writing position, and they're entitled to it. On the other side, you have owners and lawyers who allege the opposite. And these are allegations, unproven in court, so hear them as allegations. A South Carolina law firm has put up a page saying it represents clients who claim their Paramounts failed, and it argues directly that the failures are, quote, not the result of user error or improper loading. A Georgia attorney has publicly advertised that his firm represents people whose Paramounts, in his words, have exploded, causing serious injury and harm. Now, I need to be precise with you here, more precise than most channels would bother to be. Those are law firms advertising for clients. That's what those web pages are. They are not, by themselves, proof of anything, and one of them that's been described around the internet as a filed lawsuit, I could not confirm as an actual court case at all, so I'm not going to tell you those claims have been proven because they have not been. But they are public, they are out there, and they say the exact reverse of what CVA says. Where CVA says user error, they say the rifle was defective from the start. And then there is one thing on the legal side that is not an advertisement, and is not a forum post, and is fully verified. 1 week before this recall went public, on June 23, 2026, a product liability lawsuit was filed in federal court in the Western District of Virginia against CVA's distributor and its Spanish parent company. That is a real case. It is on the federal docket. It was filed against the people behind this rifle 7 days before they turned around and recalled the entire line. I can't read you what's inside that complaint yet because those details aren't public. But the sequence is a fact you can take to the bank, a federal lawsuit. And then, 1 week later, every rifle pulled from the field. Whether those two events are connected, I'll let you decide. I just think you deserve to know they happened in that order. And here's a piece of legal reality that makes this more dangerous for the company than it might look. One of the states where these claims are being pursued is a strict liability state for defective products. In plain English, that means an injured owner doesn't have to prove the company was careless. They only have to prove the product was defective and that the defect caused the harm. Now line that up against CVA's recall notice one more time. The notice that very carefully blames the user and very carefully never uses the word defect. In a strict liability fight, that single word is the whole ballgame. You start to see why every sentence in that notice reads like it was written by a lawyer, because it almost certainly was. This is a document engineered to pull an entire product line out of circulation while giving away as little legal ground as humanly possible. The recall protects the public from the rifle. The wording protects the company from the customer. Read it that way and it snaps into focus. Here's your question for the comments on this one, and I actually want to hear it because a lot of you either hunt with these or know somebody who does. If you owned a Paramount right now, would you take the $2,200 and walk away quietly, or would you want your day in court? Tell me below. And if you want to keep getting the honest version of what the outdoor industry sells us, the truth before it comes apart in somebody's hands instead of after, do the one thing that actually helps this channel survive and hit subscribe. That's it. Now, let me show you the part almost nobody is talking about, and it's the part that should unsettle you the most, whether you own one of these or not. You might be sitting there assuming that somewhere in the background, some government safety agency is on top of all this, investigating the failures, counting up the injuries, making sure CVA does right by the people who got hurt. Because that's how it works with every other product you own, right? If your toaster catches fire, the Consumer Product Safety Commission comes down on the manufacturer like a hammer. If your kid's car seat has a defective buckle, there's a federal recall with a federal agency behind it, tracking every single reported incident and forcing the company to comply. Not here, not with this, not with any gun. because firearms and ammunition are specifically, deliberately excluded from the Consumer Product Safety Commission. It is a carve-out written into the law, going all the way back to when that agency was created in the early 1970s. The one federal agency whose entire reason to exist is protecting Americans from dangerous products is legally forbidden from touching firearms. It cannot investigate this rifle. It cannot order this recall. It cannot force CVA to do a single thing. It cannot even collect the data on how many people have already been hurt. Sit with what that actually means, because it's bigger than one rifle. This recall you're hearing about, it is entirely voluntary. CVA chose to do it. There was no government agency that could have forced them, and there is no government agency checking their work right now, or verifying their explanation, or auditing whether the payout is fair. Consumer safety advocates have made this point for years. Firearms are essentially the only consumer product in America that isn't subject to mandatory federal health and safety standards. A child's teddy bear has to clear more mandatory safety regulation than the rifle you press against your cheek and fire a heavy charge of powder through inches from your eye. That is not my opinion. That is simply how the law is built. And it's not that there are no standards at all. There's an industry group, an association the gun companies themselves belong to, that publishes voluntary pressure standards, the numbers a cartridge or a chamber is supposed to be built to handle. But read that word again. Voluntary. It's the industry setting its own homework and grading its own paper. There is no federal inspector walking a muzzleloader factory floor the way one walks through a plant that makes cribs or space heaters. There is no mandatory recall authority. There is no requirement to prove a rifle is safe before it goes on the shelf, and no requirement to report it to anyone when it isn't. The whole system runs on the manufacturer choosing, on its own, to do the right thing, and then choosing, on its own, how much of the truth to tell you while it does. And that, right there, is why there is no official injury count for the Paramount. None. You will see numbers thrown around on the forums. I'm not going to repeat a single one of them, because I cannot verify them, and here's the crucial part. Neither can anyone else, because there is no agency that even collects them. Nobody is legally required to report these injuries to anyone. The only reason you even know this recall exists is that the company itself decided to tell you. Think about all the failures that never became a lawsuit, the injuries that never found a lawyer. The guy who just quietly put his blown-apart rifle in the back of the closet felt stupid and told nobody. There is no list they are on. There is no federal database logging them. There is no count. It simply vanishes. In a system like that, the recall notice you're reading isn't the floor of what happened. It might just be the part that couldn't stay hidden. And there's a piece of the timeline that looks very different now than it did when it happened. Before this recall ever came out, back around 2024 and into 2025, CVA quietly announced it was discontinuing the Paramount, ending the flagship, and the reason they gave at the time had nothing to do with safety. They said publicly that there simply wasn't enough of the specialized powder these rifles needed being manufactured to keep up with demand, so rather than frustrate customers, they'd focus on their other models, powder scarcity. That was the official story for why the best rifle they made was going away. Now maybe that was the whole truth. I can't prove it wasn't, and I'm not going to tell you it was a cover story because I don't know that. But look at the shape of it with what you know now. A flagship rifle gets quietly killed off and blamed on powder supply. It gets replaced by a new model with a reinforced, higher pressure breech plug. A federal product liability suit lands. And then the whole line, every unit ever made, gets recalled with a warning that includes the word death. You're allowed to look at that sequence and wonder whether powder was ever really the reason the Paramount disappeared. I'm not answering that for you. I'm just laying the timeline down in order and letting you see it. Here's one more piece of context that matters, and it's on the record. This is not even the first time CVA has done this. Back in the 1990s, the older version of this company issued a voluntary recall over barrel and breech failures on an earlier line of muzzleloaders. Owners of that era will tell you it nearly sank the company before it got bought out and rebuilt into what it is today. So when I say a gun coming apart at the breech is a known, documented failure mode for muzzleloaders pushed hard, I'm not speculating. It's happened before, to this very brand, in living memory, which raises the uncomfortable question of whether the lesson stuck. So let's bring all of this back to you, the person who might actually own one of these, or who's got a hunting buddy heading into muzzleloader season in a few weeks with a Paramount riding in the truck. Here's what's real, and here's what to do. If you own any Paramount, any version, any year, stop using it. I'm not saying that for drama or for views. I'm telling you what the company that built it is telling you, using their own word, death. Go to CVA's recall page. You've got two choices. You can send the rifle back for a gift card, $2,200 for the Pro models, $1,700 for the standard Paramount and the HTR. Or you can trade it in for their newer rifle, the Endura, plus a $100 gift card on top. And I'm going to be fair here, because being fair about the good parts is the only thing that makes the hard parts credible. That is not a cheap payout. For a lot of owners, that gift card is right at, or even above, what they originally paid for the rifle. And some owners looking at that replacement Endura, which genuinely is a newer design with that reinforced higher pressure breech plug, are deciding it's a fair deal, maybe even an upgrade. If that's you, honestly, good. Take it and be safe, but look very closely at what that gift card is and what it quietly is not. It's store credit. On CVA's own website, it is not cash. To get your money back out of a rifle they're now telling you could kill you, you have to turn around and spend it right back inside the very same company. And it does not touch everything you bolted onto that gun. The expensive scope you mounted, the rings and bases, the custom load components you worked up over a season, the hunt you already planned around a rifle you can no longer trust to fire safely. All of that is yours to eat. And if you were ever counting on selling that Paramount used one day to get some money back, forget it. A stop-use recall on every single unit ever made just vaporized the resale value overnight. Nobody on earth is buying a used rifle that the manufacturer is publicly begging people to return. That is the real cost of this thing. And notice where it lands. It lands on you, the owner, not on them. So here is where I come down, and you can take it or leave it. Credit where it's due. CVA did the expensive thing. They pulled every rifle and they are paying real money to get them back, and that counts for something, because plenty of companies would have quietly buried this and hoped it blew over. But they did it while pinning the danger on you, the customer, for a failure serious enough that they put the word death in writing on their own website. They did it with zero government oversight, because no agency on earth is legally allowed to check a single thing they're claiming, and they did it inside a system deliberately designed so that the single most dangerous product you can legally buy in this country is the one product nobody in Washington is even permitted to inspect. That careful shooter at the range, the one who did everything right and had the rifle come apart in his hands anyway. I told you at the very start that I couldn't verify his story, and I still can't. But I can verify this, and so can you. The company that built his rifle just told every single person who owns one to stop pulling the trigger. They will pay you thousands of dollars to hand it back. They just will not tell you it was ever their fault. You get to decide what that silence is worth.